So I think the idea of taking our guitars or basses to a luthier for repair can be kind of intimidating sometimes. So in this video, we're going to go stop by my local luthier, Stallman Guitars in Springfield, Oregon. And we're going to go pick up one of my guitars that Nate was working on, and we're going to drop off a different one. So what I'm hoping you get out of this video is a little insight to what it's like to take your gear to a luthier and get it fixed up. So we're gonna go and pick up one guitar, which is a Eastwood McGeoch 1000, and we're gonna drop off my, I believe it's a 93 Studio Les Paul. Let's check out the Les Paul real quick, and then we're gonna go on a little field trip over to Stallman Guitars, and then we'll talk about the work that I got done. This is my 92 Studio Les Paul. One of my favorite guitars. I've had this ever since I was like a young teenager. I've had it for 23 years now. So the story about this is we're going to get a new nut put on. This one, we're going to go with Corian, I think. Corian is similar to Bone. It's really hard, but it's like consistent throughout. Bone has some variants. He's going to check out the frets. He might polish them. You know, check out if there's any like high or low frets. I don't think there is, but this guitar is, you know, starting to get some wear on it. So, ebony fingerboard, really nice guitar. And the only other thing going on with this guitar that's a little different than usual is I got some black Gibson. This is a 490. This is a 498. So they have that EMG active look without actually being active. So that's the guitar we're going to drop off today. We'll come back in a week or two and update with another video, and we'll check out this one. So with that in mind, let's pack up, and I'm in Eugene, Oregon, and we're gonna head on over to the next town over, which is Springfield, Oregon, and heading over to Stallman Guitar Shop. Let's go.
So this Eastwood got a little different setup than normal because it's C standard with the EJ21s, which are 12 to 52s. Right?
I believe so. Then they got that wound third.
Yeah. So this guitar stock came with its bridge intonated for a plain G, and probably for lighter strings too. Probably for like 10s or something. So went through. We did a new nut. We did my favorite material, which is Unbleached Bone, because it's the classiest looking material.
And you gave me a couple different choices on that, and I was really stoked when you recommended this Unbleached Bone right there.
Yeah, it looks great, sounds good. I have a theory that it, or a hypothesis technically, that it reduces friction in the string slots because it hasn't had those natural oils removed through the bleaching process.
Oh, we were talking about that, right? Versus bleached bone versus unbleached bone nuts.
Yeah, the bleached, they process them with white gas or something else. So it's a solvent that's kind of destroying some of the natural oils and stuff.
Right.
So these, when you get the blank, they can look a little gross, but they turn out looking really nice.
And that's the other thing with these bone nuts is they kind of have some variance in the color when they're natural like this, right?
Yeah, cool marbling on some of them. When you're lucky, you get like a really, really cool span of different like whites and creams and ambers and stuff.
So, and it also looks like you, it looks like you put the G string, did you do that at an angle?
What I do on Gibson styles, or rather I should say a narrower Gibson headstock style, or one that's not crazy like a Flying V or whatever, is I'll open up the back of the slot. So as it travels through the front, it's still straight like it is throughout the rest of its travel, but it kind of flares out gently towards the tuner to reduce binding and stuff back there. Because you don't want to have it come into the nut, change directions, and then change directions again. So,
right.
If you can make that kind of a gentle transition, you're better off.
So, and that's one of those things that you've been doing that helps out on the classic G string not wanting to stay in tune.
Yeah, and anything with a vibrato, it's especially important to do something like that.
Because those are really meant to move.
Yeah, you're going to have your strings moving back and forth in there, and on the wound they can lock up, which is less than ideal, as our buddy Ted would say.
Right. Then what else did you do, man? Looks like I think you said you checked out the frets and then the bridge?
Yeah, so frets, usually when I go through and do setups, I will just kind of quickly polish frets and condition the fretboard. So these got polished up to somewhere in the neighborhood of 4,000. And just a quick oiling of the fretboard. I use lemon oil usually. I've also used feed and wax, which a lot of people I respect also enjoy. I left the neck relief where it was, how you had it. I thought that was a really reasonable setup, especially for not hitting super hard. That's an important consideration. Your luthier or guitar tech will probably ask you how hard you play or whether you bend, and those kind of have bearings on what the neck relief ends up being, or the 12th fret height, etc.
So that's something I think maybe a lot of people don't realize with setups, is they're kind of like personal to you.
They should be, yeah.
They should be. So this was like, you set this guitar specifically to play in C standard with the certain strings that I liked.
Yeah.
And then, of course, did the intonation and set the neck relief according to all those things.
Yes, yeah. And probably other than the nut on this particular guitar, the most time consuming deal was just making sure the bridge was all where it needed to be. Like we talked about earlier, the string gauge it would have shipped with would have been a lot lighter than what's on here now, and a different tuning. So all the saddles got slammed further back than they were when it shipped, and did a little bit of fine-tuning on one of those saddles to get it to better match the radius of the fretboard.
That's one of those things that a lot of us really, like guitar players, just really overlook, is that on Fender style guitars or things like that, where you can adjust each string up and down to match the radius of the fingerboard's what we're talking about.
Right, yep.
So sometimes this curve doesn't match the curve down here at the bridge.
Yeah.
Pretty classic problem. Well,
for Fenders notably, since the saddles are all mobile.
Right.
A big problem on Fenders, especially the tighter radii Fenders, like a 7 1/4 or whatever. If that doesn't match the radius, you'll have weird little fret outs. Also, with a radius for someone who bends a lot, you'll actually need a little more clearance on those two treble strings so that they don't choke out when you do push them inward.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, this is really cool, man. You did a great job on this. And, I don't know. I just kind of thought it'd be really cool for people to see your work. And, I don't know. When I was younger, I used to just be so afraid at the idea of taking my guitar to a shop. And sometimes I'd fiddle with it. Sometimes I'd fix things. More often than not, I'd make them worse.
I think we all have been through that.
We've all been there, right? But I don't know. Any advice for someone that's thinking about getting their guitar kind of fixed up to like their playing style and stuff? Like, just call up their local luthier and talk to them?
Yeah, the upside is the industry has been changing. I think the kind of that impression that you had when you were younger is accurate of some of the older vibe. It used to be a little bit of an Elias environment, and guitars are in everyone's hands now, and us younger people are coming into it, and most luthiers nowadays are really accessible.
Right.
You can call them, you can go in and talk to them. If they've got social media, which they should, you can hit them up on social media. But I think most importantly, find out if they are good at what they're doing. Second most importantly is find someone that you can have a long-term relationship with.
Right.
And someone who's open to hearing your opinion, because not all guitar techs or luthiers or however they'd like to be referred to, not everyone is super open, and in some cases it's great, and in some cases you need someone that's really going to work with you. And most of the people in my sphere, socially on social media and everything, are really accepting and really easy to work with.
I've definitely noticed some common themes and forums and stuff when people talk about taking their guitar to like certain luthiers. Is like they're like, I want to play in B standard on a Gibson scale,
right? Yep.
With these strings, and then sometimes they just get chased out of like, you can't do that.
Yeah, and that just goes back to find someone you can have a good long-term relationship with. I had, when I worked in Portland, I think we might have talked about this before. I happened to be one of the very few people in town that would say yes. And I remember doing stuff for people that was in some crazy drop F sharp open tuning with like baritone strings, and they all had Les Pauls for some reason. And we would just have an upfront talk. We'd just be like, well, it's going to have really low tension. You may need to be okay with some amount of fret buzz here.
Right.
We'll just do the best that we can with the geometry we're given.
So when you find a good luthier, it's a, kind of a compromise of like, instead of telling you can't do that, it's like, well, maybe just tell them the pros and cons of it. Or,
yeah.
That's
you can always get to a good result if you have an open conversation.
For sure. And I think if you're talking to someone that just isn't like feeling your vision for your guitar or your music, whatever, then just get on Instagram.
There's somebody else.
There's someone else
Every
out there.
town has at least a couple.
So we're in Springfield, Oregon.
Yes, sir.
And if anybody around where we live wants to get a hold of you, they can hit you up on Instagram, right?
Yeah, Instagram's great. If you want to get real down deep into stuff, you can just email me.
Sweet. And that's at Stommen Guitars.
Yep.
On Instagram.
Yep, and the website's stommenguitars.com.
Sweet. I'll put links to those things in the description of this video. Well, Nate, thanks for letting us hang out in your shop and check out this nice Eastwood. You did a really good job, man, and I'm looking forward to using this in some demos and stuff. Especially, I'm really stoked about that right there. Great work, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Big thank you to all of our Patreon supporters whose names we're running on the screen right now. We really appreciate each and every one of you and couldn't do this channel without you. If you want to know more about supporting this channel through the Patreon page, I'm going to leave a link in the description. Also want to give a big special thank you to our producer level Patreon supporters, David, Milo, Troy, TJ, and Rustin. I really appreciate what all of you are doing. Until next week, I will talk to you all in the comments, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.